Meghan Markle on This Morning. From polite smiles to tense silence. Happiness isn't a gift, it's a decision, and I've made mine. With this sharp remark, Meghan Markle turned a routine morning TV interview into one of the most unforgettable episodes in this morning's history. Morning talk shows are designed for comfort, light banter, celebrity charm, and laughter over coffee. Yet when Meghan walked onto the studio set to meet presenters Alison Hammond and Dermot O'Leary, that cheerful formula began to unravel. What should have been a warm chat slowly shifted into one of the most charged interviews daytime television had seen in years. The stage is set. The studio glowed with soft light, streaming through glass panels. Bright flowers decorated the coffee table, and Alison's famous booming laugh set the tone. Good morning, everyone. Today, we have a very special guest, actress, activist, and former Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. The audience clapped politely as Meghan entered with practiced elegance. Her smile was poised, almost rehearsed, and when Alison leaned in for a hug, Meghan offered only a hand. A small gesture, but enough to subtly change the mood. Dermot welcomed her warmly. We're so thrilled to have you here. Thank you, Meghan replied coolly. It's always interesting to be here. The conversation turns. The early questions seemed harmless. Alison asked about new projects and appearances. Meghan, however, steered her answer away from promotion and into something heavier. What's going on is purpose, focus, using my voice to elevate the conversation beyond gossip. That's what matters. Her tone carried an edge. The audience shifted uneasily. Dermot quickly moved on, but Alison pressed again, asking about life outside the UK and whether Meghan was happy. The response was striking. Happiness isn't a gift, Alison. It's a decision, and I've made mine. The words drew polite applause, but the tension in the room was undeniable when questions cut too deep. The most heated moment came when Alison asked about Meghan's partnership with Prince Harry. How do you both balance work, family, and the children? Meghan's eyes flashed. You don't ask working men how they balance things with their wives, Alison. We both have schedules we manage. It's not that complicated. The warmth of the studio seemed to vanish. Alison laughed nervously, trying to soften the exchange, but Meghan pressed further when the topic turned to their children. My children aren't morning show material. A murmur swept through the audience. A clash on value and power. Dermot stepped in, hoping to steer the conversation back to safer ground. Her Netflix projects. Reports had surfaced that Meghan demanded more money for a new season. Her response was swift and biting. When a man demands fair value, he's a visionary. When a woman does, she's greedy. I don't chase pennies, Dermot. I command worth. The audience offered scattered applause, while Alison raised her brows, her trademark warmth now strained. And then came the question that many had been waiting for. The monarchy. You've called it outdated in the past, Alison asked cautiously. Do you still feel the same way? The interview had already strayed far from the usual laughter and light chatter of morning television. At this point, everyone in the studio seemed to be holding their breath. Looking ahead. The This Morning interview wasn't just another celebrity appearance. It revealed the tension between media expectations, soft smiles and friendly gossip, and a guest determined to challenge the narrative on her own terms. Some saw Meghan as strong and uncompromising, others as defensive and dismissive. Either way, one thing is certain. This wasn't morning TV as usual. But here's the real question. Do such interviews give public figures a chance to be truly heard? Or do they only deepen the divide between them and the audience? Tradition, power, and the breaking point. Tradition doesn't equal righteousness. Centuries of history don't erase harm. With those words, Meghan Markle pulled the conversation into dangerous waters. The studio, usually a place of cheerful chatter, fell silent. Alison Hammond's bright smile flickered, while Dermot O'Leary tugged at his tie, sensing just how delicate the moment had become. Behind the cameras, Producers exchanged tense glances. This was no longer a light-hearted segment. It was turning into a confrontation. The creative defense Dermot tried to soften the mood, steering the talk toward Meghan's creative projects. Viewers are fascinated by your storytelling. Do you see yourself more in documentaries, scripted series, maybe even writing? Meghan's response was cool, deliberate. I don't box myself into categories. I create. Whether that scares the industry or not is their problem. The line was polished, almost rehearsed, but carried a condescension that unsettled the room. Alison clapped lightly, forcing brightness into her voice. Well, that's very empowering, but storytelling also comes with responsibility. Some critics say your work focuses heavily on your own journey. Do you feel that's fair? Meghan tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. When men make films about their trauma, they win Oscars. When women do it, we're called narcissists. Perhaps the problem isn't my storytelling, Alison. It's society's bias. The studio, usually buzzing with laughter, sat in uneasy silence. When personal becomes personal. Alison, pressing on, softened her tone. Speaking of journeys, how's Harry? He's such a beloved figure here in the UK. People miss him. Meghan's smile vanished. Harry doesn't belong to anyone, Alison. He's not a souvenir Britain gets to miss like a lost postcard. He's my husband, and he's thriving without constant tabloid intrusion. The sharpness of her words startled even Dermot. Trying to steady the moment, he asked about their children. And Archie and Lilibet? People often wonder how they're settling into life outside the palace spotlight. Meghan's answer was uncompromising. My children are not for public consumption. The world doesn't get to demand progress reports as if they're reality show contestants. Alison's hands tightened together. She nodded carefully, but added, Of course, we respect that. Still, families at home often feel inspired seeing public figures balance parenting. Meghan cut her off with a cold laugh. Then perhaps families at home should focus on their own children instead of obsessing over mine. The gasp from the audience was audible. Alison's legendary warmth seemed to falter. For the first time, her famous laugh didn't come. Negotiations and headlines. Sensing the rising tension, Dermot intervened. Let's shift to industry talk. There have been reports, purely reports, that you demanded a higher budget for your Netflix series. Some say it's about money, others about creative control. Can you clarify? Meghan crossed her arms, her posture defensive. Clarify? I don't explain myself to rumour mills. Netflix knows my value. If the press is scandalised that a woman negotiates, that's their problem, not mine. Her words were firm, but the frost in her delivery only deepened the chill on set. Alison leaned forward, her tone sharpening. But, Meghan, isn't it fair to say those negotiations are part of what keeps you in the headlines? You've stepped away from the monarchy, yet you still command global attention. The exchange had become more than an interview. It was a duel, between hosts trying to maintain lightness, and a guest determined to confront, correct, and challenge at every turn. Reflection. This second act of the interview exposed the clash between two narratives: the television world seeking relatable family stories and celebrity charm, and Meghan's refusal to play that role. To her supporters, she was speaking truth with courage. To her critics, she was combative and dismissive. But the real question is this: when public figures draw hard boundaries in the media, are they protecting themselves or pushing the public further away? Privacy, power, and the breaking point. Privacy doesn't mean silence. I didn't abdicate my humanity. I use my platform how I see fit. Meghan Markle's words cut through the studio with razor-like precision. Alison Hammond, usually the embodiment of warmth and laughter, sat frozen for a beat. Dermot O'Leary shifted uncomfortably beside her, fully aware that patience on set was thinning. Alison tried again, her tone gentler this time. But, Meghan, surely you can see why the public might be confused. You've often spoken about wanting peace, yet you remain very much in the spotlight. Meghan's reply came cold and unflinching. Peace doesn't mean disappearing, it means boundaries. If the public struggles with that, perhaps it's because they're too used to women being silent and compliant. The audience murmured, some nodding in agreement, others shaking their heads in disapproval. Alison forced out a brittle laugh, but the sparkle that normally softened her interviews was fading. Words that stung. Alison pressed forward, choosing her words carefully. You've always had strong words for the monarchy. When you look back, do you regret any of it? Meghan didn't flinch. Regret? No. The monarchy is a relic, an ornament polished for tourists while crushing those within. I spoke the truth. I'll never apologise for that. The temperature in the studio seemed to drop. Alison's eyes widened, her practiced composure faltering before she recovered with a strained smile. Well, that's certainly one way to put it. Dermot jumped in, attempting to soften the blow. What Meghan means is... But Meghan sliced across him sharply. What I mean is exactly what I said. I don't need an interpreter, Dermot. A gasp rippled through the audience. Alison leaned back, gripping the sofa edge, her legendary patience slipping before viewers' eyes. The storm breaks. Dermot, clearly uneasy, attempted to regain control. Before the break, you spoke about truth. What do you hope people take away from your projects moving forward? Meghan's answer was instant, confident, cutting. That truth has no expiration date, no matter how much institutions or morning shows try to bury it. The words landed like a hammer. Alison's smile vanished entirely, replaced by a sharp, cold expression that betrayed frustration. Dermot glanced at her face and realised the storm was no longer brewing. It had arrived. When the show returned from commercials, the atmosphere was no lighter. Dermot plastered on a professional smile, but Alison's demeanour had shifted. Gone was her trademark warmth. In its place, calculation and strain. Meghan, however, sat unbothered, elegant and composed, as though she owned the room. Scrutiny and survival. Dermot tried to salvage the conversation. Your projects often generate strong reactions, both positive and critical. How do you handle constant scrutiny? Meghan smirked. Perspective, Dermot. Criticism is often jealousy in disguise. People tear down what they don't understand. I've stopped trying to win over the masses. If they can't rise to my level, that's their burden. The audience shifted uneasily, sensing the widening gulf between guest and hosts. Alison, her patience fraying, pressed again. Well, Meghan, not everyone sees it that way. Some feel confused by contradictions. For example, you've spoken harshly against the monarchy, yet people point out you've benefited enormously from your title, your connections, your visibility. Meghan's head snapped toward her, the smile gone. Her voice was icy. Benefited? You mean survived? Do you know what it's like to be chewed up by a machine and spit out as a caricature? The monarchy didn't hand me anything. I built who I am. My platform is mine, not theirs. The silence that followed was heavy, the weight of confrontation pressing down on the studio. Reflection. This segment revealed more than just Meghan's views on monarchy, media, and privacy. It showed the clash of two worlds. Alison, the people's presenter, relied on warmth and relatability. Meghan rejected both, demanding to be heard on her own terms. To admirers, she was fearless, unflinching in the face of scrutiny. To critics, she was combative, unwilling to show humility. And so the question lingers. When does defiance become strength? And when does it risk becoming alienation? From polite debate to explosive showdown. If the British public expected me to bow forever in gratitude for their scraps, they chose the wrong woman. I will never apologise for refusing to be silent. With those words, Meghan Markle shattered what little composure remained on the This Morning set. What began as a tense back and forth spiralled into one of the most combative live interviews in daytime television. Viewers at home watched, stunned, as Alison Hammond, normally a beacon of warmth, finally lost her patience. The spark that lit the fire. It began when Alison carefully challenged Meghan. With respect, your global recognition came because you married into the royal family. That's what gave you the stage you're standing on today. The audience gasped. Dermot O'Leary tried to soften the blow, but Meghan cut in sharply. I heard exactly what she meant, and it's insulting. My worth isn't defined by a family tree. I'm not clinging to borrowed fame. Alison's grip tightened on her cards. Her voice, usually laced with humour, carried a new sharpness. Yet, you continue to speak about the royals at every opportunity. If you truly wanted to move on, why keep bringing them up? Meghan leaned back, arms crossed, her tone dripping with disdain. Because silence protects abusers. If that makes people uncomfortable, perhaps they should examine their own complicity instead of questioning my choices. The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. The boiling point Dermot scrambled to redirect the conversation toward Meghan's charity and wellness projects, but Alison wasn't smiling anymore. She cut in with words that echoed the frustrations of viewers at home. I don't question giving back, Meghan. I question the way you present yourself as a victim while living in luxury. People at home are struggling with bills, with real life. Do you understand how your words sound to them? Meghan blinked, incredulous. Luxury? Are we really reducing my experience to the square footage of my home? That's beneath you, Alison. Alison's voice rose, her trademark laugh gone. What's beneath me is the arrogance you've shown since you sat down. Every question is an attack. Every criticism is jealousy. People are tired of being lectured by someone who claims she hates the crown, but gladly wore it when it suited her. The studio erupted in murmurs, some in agreement, others in shock. Gloves off. Alison leaned forward now, abandoning all pretense of cheerful moderation. You talk about surviving the monarchy, Meghan, but the truth is you used it. You used the spotlight, the global attention, and when it stopped serving you, you branded it toxic. You can't have it both ways. For the first time, Meghan looked rattled. Straightening her blazer, she narrowed her eyes. I don't need to justify myself to morning show hosts. My truth is bigger than this studio will ever understand. Alison's response was immediate, fiery. Truth or convenience? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you milked every ounce of fame that marriage gave you. And when people pushed back, you painted yourself as a martyr. That's not truth, Meghan. That's performance. The audience gasped loudly, some clapping in support, others stunned into silence. Dermot rose halfway from his seat, hands raised, desperately trying to calm the storm. But Alison wasn't finished. Her voice trembled, but stayed firm. Do you have any idea how offensive it is to sit here morning after morning with ordinary people, hard-working families, while you sneer about being misunderstood, all while cashing in on the very system you despise? Enough is enough. Silence, then the hammer falls. The studio fell silent, the air thick with confrontation. Meghan sat tall, arms crossed, chin lifted high. Her words were ice. If the British public expected me to bow forever in gratitude for their scraps, they chose the wrong woman. I will never apologise for refusing to be silent. Not for you. Not for anyone. Alison exhaled slowly, her voice shaking but resolute. Then, maybe this interview should end right here. Because I won't sit here and watch you sneer at every question. This is This Morning, not your personal soapbox. Dermot jumped in, urging a break, but the damage was already done. Everyone in the room knew it. The audience, the producers, and Meghan herself. The interview had stopped being a conversation. It had become a public showdown. Reflection. What played out on live television was more than a clash of personalities. It was a collision of narratives. Meghan asserting her independence and defiance, Alison voicing the skepticism of a public tired of contradictions, and Dermot caught in the middle trying to contain the fallout. To some, Meghan's refusal to bend was admirable, a woman standing firm in the face of relentless scrutiny. To others, it was arrogance on display, confirming every criticism she has faced. The question remains, did Meghan seize the moment to speak her truth, or did the confrontation only harden the divide between her and the very audience she hopes to reach? The clash that couldn't be contained. Stop asking women like me to justify our existence. Pain and privilege can exist together, and I don't owe anyone silence. The words dropped like stone into water, sending ripples through the This Morning studio. The commercial break had been too brief to cool tempers. When the cameras blinked back to life, Dermot O'Leary forced a strained grin, desperate to steer the show back under control. Alison Hammond sat rigid beside him, her famous warmth replaced by something sharper, almost unrecognizable. Across from them, Meghan Markle lounged on the sofa, arms folded, chin tilted upward, radiating defiance. A question of tone Dermot attempted diplomacy. Meghan, perhaps we can move towards something uplifting. You often speak about empowerment. What message would you like to leave with viewers today? Her smile was tight, her voice cutting. The lesson is simple. Stop demanding that I endlessly explain myself. Stop mistaking survival for gratitude. I don't exist to make the public comfortable. The audience stirred uneasily. A few clapped, many whispered. Alison drew a long breath, her tone controlled but weary. No one here is trying to silence you, but dismissing every question and treating every challenge as beneath you. That doesn't read as strength. It reads as arrogance. Meghan arched her brows. Arrogance? Perhaps what you call arrogance is simply confidence. Confidence you're not used to seeing in women like me. The crowd reacted with a collective gasp. No more holding back. Alison leaned in, her voice dropping low, edged with steel. Don't twist this into some story about people fearing your strength. I've spent my entire career supporting women, but what I won't endorse is rudeness, entitlement, and the refusal to take responsibility. Dermot raised his hands, his voice pleading for calm, but Alison pressed forward, her words rolling like thunder. You say the monarchy suffocated you, destroyed you, and yet, let's be honest, you wouldn't be sitting here today without it. The Netflix contracts, the book deals, the global stage, they all came because you wore that crown. You embraced it when it served you, then discarded it when it didn't. And now you sneer at every question as if the world owes you something. The audience erupted. Shock, applause, dismay, all at once. Meghan flushed red, her jaw tightening. How dare you? My marriage is about love. My story is my own. Sharing pieces of it is my right. Accusations and counterblows. Alison didn't hesitate. Her voice rang clear. Love? Then why does it look like you've built a brand on your husband's name? Prince Harry, once admired on his own, now appears sidelined as a prop in your narrative. You preach independence, but every door opened because of him. Admit it. You leaned on his fame. You've wrung it dry. The reaction was explosive. The studio gasped, some cheering, others stunned into silence. Dermot, visibly shaken, tried to interject. Let's please keep this professional. But Meghan's voice cut across him sharp as glass. I won't sit here while you accuse me of exploiting my own husband. This is a setup, a disgraceful ambush. And honestly, Alison, your attack says more about you than me. Alison's reply was immediate, unwavering. No, Meghan, it says everything about you. From the moment you sat down, you dismissed, mocked, and condescended. You acted as if no one here has the right to question you. The studio fell into a stunned silence, the clash no longer an interview, but an all-out confrontation, live before millions. Reflection. By this point, the exchange had transformed from celebrity Q&A into something rawer and far more dangerous. A battle of ego, accountability, and perception. Supporters saw Meghan's composure as evidence of strength, an unyielding refusal to submit to criticism. Critics saw arrogance made flesh, confirming every doubt about her intentions. Alison, long the queen of warmth and laughter, had abandoned her smile to call out what she saw as hypocrisy. And so the moment left viewers with a lingering question. Was this Meghan's triumph of honesty, or the moment her defiance finally turned the public tide against her? The walkout that shook morning TV. This is This Morning, not your PR stage, and I will not sit here while you talk down to us or our viewers 1 second longer. With that declaration, Alison Hammond dropped the final blow. The audience erupted into cheers, some even leaping to their feet. Meghan Markle opened her mouth, ready to deliver one last retort, but Alison cut her off with a raised hand. Enough. We're finished. You've revealed exactly who you are, and this programme will not hand you a platform for arrogance. The exit Meghan shot up from the sofa, ripping at her microphone until the wire came free with a sharp tug. Her movements were jerky, furious. She glared down at Alison, her voice trembling with rage. You'll regret this. The world will see how you treated me today. Alison's response was calm but unyielding. The world just saw how you treated yourself. Don't pin that on me. Without another word, Meghan spun around, her heels striking the studio floor like gunfire. The doors swung shut behind her, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Picking up the pieces. Dermot. O'Leary sat frozen, caught between his co-host and the cameras, unsure how to proceed. Alison inhaled deeply, her shoulders loosening as the fire in her eyes dimmed. Turning back to the audience, her voice softened with sincerity. To everyone at home, I want to apologise. This is not the conversation we intended, and it certainly wasn't the tone we hoped for. But live television has a way of stripping away pretences, and today we all saw the truth unfold in real time. The audience broke into loud applause, this time for Alison. Dermot nodded gravely and added, We'll return after a short break. The cameras faded out, but the story was only beginning. Aftermath. By that afternoon, social media timelines were ablaze. Clips circulated at lightning speed, hashtags trended across platforms, and headlines screamed of a morning TV meltdown. Commentators were already dissecting every second of the exchange. What should have been just another celebrity interview had instead become one of the most infamous live confrontations in British television history. And the debate was far from over. Was Alison right to confront Meghan so directly? Or had the showdown gone too far?